It's now my pleasure to invite Mike Styer to present his thoughts on cyber recovery. This is the cornerstone of business continuity. Mike is the country manager in South Africa at GlassHouse. Mike, great to have you here today and looking forward to your presentation. Over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Much appreciated, and welcome to everybody at the session. Today, the topic I'll be speaking about is cyber recovery, and it's in response to zero trust under the new threats. How has business continuity evolved? And business continuity is built on trust, creating a trust deficit, and fixing that trust deficit at the end of the day. Your business continuity plan is the heartbeat of your business. You have to have high trust into it, but it's built on a basis of zero trust. And when I say a basis of zero trust, that means somebody in the business has made a decision that they don't trust something that is happening. And measures have been put in place. A business continuity plan, a business continuity strategy has been built to improve that trust. And every time we've improved on that trust level, the first component of that being backup and recovery with snapshots, mirroring, synchronous and asynchronous copying of your data. We've created data also for recovery purposes when data gets damaged, when it gets potentially corrupted through hardware failures, and there's also regulatory requirements. And IT took this on their shoulders and created backup and recovery. And the reason being is that there was low trust, okay, that your data would always be 100% correct all of the time. But then what about fire or flood or something more sinister? Disaster recovery had to be put in place. You had to be able to recover your data a lot quicker. Backup and recovery takes a long time when you're doing it to tape. When you're switching between sites and you have the capability to get to your data very quickly when switching over through your disaster recovery plan. But a disaster recovery plan is built on copies of data being replicated across. So bad data can be replicated, corrupt data can be replicated. So it's a mirror image of whatever sits at your production site. So if something breaks and you go over and you can bring everything up, great, you've got an operational system. But if your data is damaged, all your systems are still functioning, damaged data can be moved across to your disaster recovery site. Business wants the capability to be able to operate and to continue operating without any major issues. So this started to involve business to be part of the disaster recovery plan, but it was mostly driven by IT. We must also remember that disaster recovery plans in the event of data being damaged are a slow process and it can take a long time to come back. So business resumption planning had to be put in place. Operational functions had to be replicated to somewhere in case your building was burnt by a fire. You have to have your customer support call center, whatever it is, up and running. You have to have access to a network, and you have to have access to all your data and your applications. Your business would tell you what is critical for them to come up, what do they need, what is revenue generating, and what needs to be run. So the whole process has to be managed through a business resumption plan. You have to have the trust that should your building burn down, you can go somewhere else and continue operations with a minimum of. All of this has been done very well. It's all been regulated a lot. We've had the various King reports, and people have done this with aplomb. Many people have got their whole business continuity strategy really down pat. They're doing it really, really well. The big question we've got to ask here is who does it the best? And the people that are doing it the best are the guys that have suffered some kind of a disaster, some kind of an event which has caused them to lose data. When they've sat back and asked themselves the question, this whole investment into business continuity no longer becomes a grudge purchase, no longer becomes a grudge spend. It is now something that is essential to keep your business running. And the guys that are doing it the best are the guys that have been burned. So here we sit in the new way of work. We sit in the new normal, and new threats are arising all the time. The first type of cyber threats that we started to see was viruses. Very easy to manage. lots of products came out there, and nobody really in the last year or two has been totally hammered or taken down by a virus threat. But cyber criminals have got a lot more clever. They've now started to develop malware. They've started to develop Trojans. They've started to develop ransomware. They start to pay people. Disgruntled employees could also be involved. And let's face it, we've gone to working from different places, and your problems, your ransomware may be walking through the door from an employee that was just doing their job at a coffee shop while they had free wireless. South Africa has been ranked 3rd most targeted country in the world for ransomware. We're right up there. There are many, many other countries close behind us, and we're sitting in a space where there's some big names sitting in there, the US, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. There's many, many countries are being targeted, but we're right up there with the most targeted. 24% of South African businesses were hit by ransomware in 2020. This is according to a study done by Sophos, and we think it's a lot higher because much of it does not go reported. So cyber attacks are happening all the time, every day, and it's now become a way of life. We have to be protecting ourselves. Here's some scary stuff. 42% of South African businesses paid the ransom. 42% of those that reported having a cyber attack aided and abetted criminal activity. Only 20% were able to restore all their data, okay, without having to pay the ransom. And 11% lost all their data. These type of statistics have gone back with why we've gone back to zero trust in the business continuity continuum. And this is why having a cyber resiliency program has become essential to all business. Trust is at an all-time low. We cannot trust the security systems. We cannot trust backup and recovery. We cannot trust business disaster recovery and our business resumption planning to be the be-all and end-all. Our business continuity strategy has to be a living thing. We have to move with the times, and we have to now start catering for cyber criminality. So, what is a cyber resilience and recovery plan? What will it do? It's got to build trust. It's got to restore the trust deficit that currently sits out there. Okay, and we've got to allow business to protect their data all the time, and we've got to have the capability to recover quickly. So what do you need to put in place to make all of this happen? You know, we're going into a new era. We're going into a new space. We're going into a new type of protection of our data, a new area of our business continuity strategy. So we have to have tried and tested systems and infrastructure, something that we know that works. We're not going to go into the new world with an untried and tested vehicle. Okay, we have to know something, the underlying infrastructure is something that we can put one side, everything's going to run on it, and we're not going to have any problems. We've got to make sure that we have an immutable copy of our data at all times, that golden copy that can never be changed. Even if there is a virus or a piece of ransomware or a piece of malware lurking inside it, so long as it is unchangeable, it could never execute. And you always have that original copy of the data to go back for your regulatory requirements. You have to have an air gap between your network, your systems, your users, and the vault. If you don't have this, it is exposed. You have to build a vault where you can always keep that golden copy of your data and you know that it is good and safe. You have to have some really intelligent secret source that sits there and continuously scans your data, looks for known data, looks for changes in data, okay, and is continuously scanning. And as soon as it finds some type of anomaly, it goes and reports us. It also works on some really clever stuff, looking at the entropy of your data. So how does the randomness of the data change? You've got to meet compliance standards. IT and business audit have to be involved. You have to have risk and compliance involved, and your security team. Your security team can no longer be only looking outwards. They have to look inwards. And regulatory authorities such as Sheltered Harbor have set up standards that if you conform to those standards, you're generally going to be in a good place. So having a tried and tested platform, having business rules and artificial intelligence and machine learning that look at how the data changes and what it does, and to have standards is what you need to do in your cyber recovery planning. So why would GlassHouse? Why would you choose us? We know this space, okay? We have tailor-made services to be able to build you a cyber recovery solution. We do this with Dell EMC's cyber recovery services. We have an industry-leading team. We have unparalleled experience. We are currently running this in our own environment. We protect our AD, we protect much of our customer data, and we eat our own dog food. We are running cyber recovery from Dell in our own environment. We have a unique relationship with Dell, and we have the experience to be able to look after your data. Data is in our DNA. So you look after the business, let us look after your data. With that, Mark, I'd like to hand over back to you. Thank you for the time for presenting, and over to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Mike. That was very, very interesting. A couple of highlights that I've noted. I mean, absolutely continuity is key. I think the one thing in business is business hates surprises. And, to have a proper plan to make sure that it's secure, that it's got that air gap that you mentioned, it's immutable copy of the data. And it conforms to standards and it's real time. Those are critical elements in any proper business continuity plan. And I think, a great presentation, and thank you for that. Mike, what I would like to do now, we have been asking for some questions, and they are starting to come in. So I do invite the audience to keep posting them in the Q&A box. There's a chance to win an e-shopping voucher as well, based on your questions. And first question I'm reading up here is quite a good one. Who should be responsible for cyber recovery? Data managers, security managers, or both? Who carries the can?
Yeah, who carries the can? This is obviously not something that can be just left up to IT. It's not something that can just be left up to security. This is something that has to live within the whole organization. From your CEO down, the board has to buy into a cyber resilience program. Because let's face it, if your data is lost, you pay ransoms, reputational damage, data loss, customer loss. All of this affects the business directly. So this is a process that has to be owned, managed, and questions have to be asked by the business, and IT has to do this well. IT has to go out there and find the right solutions for the business to ensure that they always have that golden copy of data, and that cyber criminals, even if they strike, you have the capability to get your data back without suffering reputational damage. So most certainly, this is something that is not only owned by IT and the guys that speak in hex and dream in binary. This is something that the guys that work in spreadsheets, Excel, and have discussions around the boardroom table. It's a responsibility that sits right across the organization.
Absolutely, and I think your presentation also underscored that in terms of the business aspects. That continuity is IT guys can make sure it happens. They make sure they've got the right products and services and platforms in place. But there's got to be compliance across the board and collaboration across the board. Now, Mike, another question that's come in here. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said most definitely. The IT guys can put in great systems, but they've got to understand the business. And that's going to be the business that has to provide those rules.
Absolutely. Mike, just the next question has come up here. If there is already a recovery point within the business, is there really a need to invest in cyber recovery solutions? So they're saying, well, they've got a recovery point. That's all very well. We can always go back to recovery point and life will go on. I think they've missed a couple of things here, though. Give us your view on that, Mike.
Yeah, well, Mark, my whole presentation's been structured around having a recovery point. In the early days, you had backup and recovery, and somebody backed your data up to a tape. We probably do it with our laptops with a memory stick, and we keep all our important photos of our holidays and stuff like that. And we provide some level of backup, and that's a recovery point. So if ever your laptop gets stolen, those important photos are there. And if ever a system goes down, you'd be able to restore from tape. So that was a recovery point. It has its place. It hasn't gone away, and it's never going to go away. You have business continuity. The next component of it is your disaster recovery plan. Your capability to keep your business up and running and being able to switch over in the event of some type of physical disaster, be it power, be it flooding, be it disgruntled employee damage to systems, something along those lines. You have the capability to be able to swap over quite quickly and to resume your business. But this is the assumption that your data hasn't been peddled with. So your recover point is there for something physical happening. And that's what disaster recovery is all about. Your business resumption plan is bringing all those recovery points together and to be able to continue operating, to continue having your business flow, to continue having your revenue generating systems there, cha-ching, cha-ching, the money comes in. All of those are recover points along the line of the business continuity continuum. We're now adding to that with cyber recovery. We can't just chuck that other way of stuff away and say, yes, we now have just the new cyber recovery or cyber resilience program, and that's going to replace everything else. It does not. It just addresses cyber criminality and the issues associated with that. So having previous recover points through backup recovery, business resumption, disaster recovery, instant failover, multiple production systems, backup to tape, all of those recover points are there, they're still valid, and they still have their place. The new thing we have to address is cyber resilience. And it does not nullify anything that came before it. It is something that is added to the business continuity strategy going forward.
It's basically making it end to end. And I think with so many more points of failure or the platform of attack is so much wider now and so on, it becomes essential to have all of these in place. And it's a full journey that you take now. It's not just points in time, which is really, I think, something that the CIOs appreciate and need to take attention of.
And 100%. And the whole theme of the presentation, sorry, Mark, the whole theme of the presentation is the trust deficit has been addressed by creating a recover point. And then the next thing happened, and the trust deficit was addressed by creating a recover point. Cyber criminality is just the next evolution in these business continuity plan. And that's the next trust deficit we have to address with the cyber resiliency program.